On April 14th, I became a prisoner of war.
Mm-hmm.
And I was transferred from one camp to another and finally to Bretzenheim,
Mm-hmm.
where I stayed for 3 months under free heaven.
No cover.
No cover whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was under free heaven, and it would rain sometimes for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine 118,000 people under free heaven, under the rain, and they tried to survive. And a lot of them couldn't. They died there. I was going to school with one person who died right there. His name was Tom, his first name, and I don't know his last name because he was from a different village, you know. But he got pneumonia there and he died right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the morning, the dump truck would drive through the prisoner camp picking up the dead. And according to Eric Werner, there were 120
mm-hmm.
to 180 persons
mm-hmm.
died every day and night. In the morning they came with a dump truck to pick them up, throw them on a dump truck and took them away. This is what we saw. It was a terrible sight.
Mm-hmm.
They organized strong German soldiers, big strong guys, that would throw these dead people on top of the truck. And I did not go to the bathroom for 12 days because nothing coming in and nothing going out. We didn't have bathrooms, we just had holes in the ground there. There were no bathrooms there. They dug a hole, a trench, and that's where people had to relieve themselves, just in the trench.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would cover it up and dig another trench.
Oh, well. What did they feed you?
Nothing. As I said, if you don't have to go to relieve yourself for 12 days, there was nothing coming in. Sometimes we would get one little chocolate bar for 3 days. That was enough for 3 days. Like I divided my chocolate bar in 3 pieces because I knew the next couple of days we wouldn't get nothing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would bring bread, and each person would get one slice of bread and a glass of water. Not a glass, it was plastic cups we had, and there was a water tap, and there were about 100 people standing in line trying to get a glass of water. We were allowed only one glass of water a day.
Oh my goodness.
And sometimes they would bring potatoes, you know, small potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
One little potato per person for 1 day. That was the food, all you got.
Wow. Was it cooked at least?
They were cooked, yes.
Yeah.
And we were told by some people from outside the fence, that the farmers in the area, they boiled the potatoes and brought them there for the prisoners.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What were you saying about the barbed wire?
Yeah, the barbed wire, this is what puzzled me, because they had so much barbed wire there. There were squares with barbed wire cordoned off, and each square had 3,000 people in there. And the barbed wire was about 8 feet tall, 8 feet high, all round, you know. And we were not allowed to go close to the fence. And if people would go closer to the fence as they were allowed, about 6 feet away from the fence, you had to stay away from the fence. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they would be shot. And one bullet came between me and my friend right into the ground when somebody went closer to the fence. Mm. So we were lucky we didn't get hit. Mm-hmm. You can imagine how depressing it is to be there helpless, completely terrible, you know. It was an experience that no one can forget who was in there. Mm-hmm. No one.
How do you survive?
I was lucky with Johann Wiens there. He was from our neighbor village. Actually, it was a relative of our distant relative of ours. The two of us were together. We were drafted together. We were in the army together, and the front and everywhere. We stuck together. And we were lucky when we were in one camp in Nordhausen. We were about 1,000 people there, and all of a sudden 2 guards came with machine guns drawn over and talked to our guards, and they said we had to line up all in 6 rows, and we had to line up all the prisoners there. And then the 2 of them, with the 3rd guard, the 3 of them, they walked and looked everyone in the faces, looked for somebody. And we didn't know why they were searching. When they came to me, they pulled me out of the 3rd row and took me outside the camp, outside the fence, you know. And I said to my friends, well, this is goodbye for me. I figured they would shoot me. And then they took me out of the fence and then onto the sidewalk. I had to walk a couple of blocks on the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden one of those guys that was with me, he disappeared, and the other one put his machine gun over his shoulder and walked with me on the sidewalk. And I was very puzzled. Then all of a sudden, between 2 3-story houses was steps going up, and then he said, up the steps. So I walked up, and he spoke some German, and we walked all the way up to the steps to the top, and I found out that there was a kitchen there. And canisters, these tanks from where they transport gasoline, 5-gallon gasoline containers, you know. And then this man put his gun down, and then he said I should take these cans. I took 2 cans, and he took 1, and then we walked 1 block. And there was a water tap on the street, and then we filled up these tanks with water, you know, gasoline tanks. And I carried them up, and then he gave me he had a whole bunch of tanks there, and he gave me 2 more, and he says, "You go and bring more." He sent me alone on the street, and there were soldiers walking there with machine guns. I was scared, but nobody touched me and nobody said nothing to me because I was carrying these gas containers. And I filled up all the gas containers up there. There were quite a few there. And this man that brought me there, he was doing something there in the kitchen. And then when I came up with the last containers, and he said to me, "Okay, here is a rag. he showed me a rag, a wet rag. I was supposed to dust in the other room. And there was a room with a long table, and there were watches and all kinds of jewelry and everything there. And even a pistol that I actually had, one of those pistols, was laying there. And he said to me I was supposed to dust there. So I had to move everything in dust. And I did dust that whole table with a wet rag. And when I was finished, I went back into the kitchen, and he had made lunch for me. He boiled potatoes, and he had a steak and a white piece of bread, which I hadn't seen for who knows how long. And I hadn't eaten nothing for about 3 days. I was very hungry. And he said, now I was supposed to sit down and eat. And then I sat down and I prayed, you know, thanking God for the meal that was provided for me. And he watched me very carefully, this man. And then after I ate, and I was scared to eat it all because my stomach was empty. And then, alles essen, eat everything, he says. So I ate it all. In the meantime, he boiled water. Now I figured, okay, now he's going to boil my skin, you know, because I was expecting all the worst. He boiled the water, and then he put it in a tub, you know, there was a tub there, and he put the water, the boiling water in there, and then I thought, oh boy, and it was steaming, the water, you know. And then he took some cold water from the container and put it in there until he could put his hand in there. And then he told me, now, take everything off and wash yourself. And he gave me a rag, and I washed myself in that warm water, you know, which was just unbelievable for me. And then in the meantime, he went into another room, and he got me some fresh underwear. My underwear he threw in the garbage. And he gave me fresh underwear from the German people there that left there. And after that, he gave me a little blanket. The blanket was once for one person to cover up, you know. And this blanket was brown, and it was a wool blanket. He gave that to me, and he had the overcoat. He had that there laying there, and then he put it on me, and he filled all my pockets full of canned stuff, you know, canned meat and vegetables, you know, and cheese. He filled it all up, and then he looked at me and he says, okay, we have to go now. I have to bring you back, he told me, you know, in broken German. And then he brought me back into that camp. The friends that I was there, they were looking, I couldn't believe it. I was clean, and I had this coat on, and I shared all these cans with the prisoners there next to me.
And you were alive.
And I was alive. I couldn't believe it. And you came back, they said, you know. Yeah, this guy brought me back right in there where he picked me up.
So you got paid well for the dusting job.
I got, you know, that blanket saved John Wiens and my life. When it was raining for 3 days, that blanket, we had it over us, and the rain didn't go through there because it was wool blanket. It ran off, okay? And we were wet, but not so cold, you know? Mm-hmm. And actually that blanket saved our lives. Mm. Can you imagine?
Yeah. And you had a little bit to eat at least as you were coming
And
in.
I had such a meal that I never dreamed of.
And you were able, what did you do with the other food that you got?
Well, I gave it to the prisoners where I was standing there. I kept one can of cheese. There was cheese in there, and I kept that for myself. But the rest, I just couldn't help it. I gave it away.
They were hungry.
Everybody was hungry. I mean, we all didn't have
Yeah.
nothing to eat for a couple of days.
Yeah,
You know.
totally.
Yeah, but this experience was so beautiful. I just had to praise God for His love and kindness, despite the problems that we were in.
So you had a bright light in the dark place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This was unbelievable that could happen to
Yeah.
me, you know. But he was walking, they were walking through, finally he saw me and he took me up. That was God given, that he picked me up there and gave me that, you know. It's unbelievable to me that could happen.
So that helped you to survive.
That helped, the blanket kept us surviving, yeah. Yeah.
And you never got so depressed that you tried to kill yourself or anything like that.
That never entered my mind to kill. You know what? Some people, they were so depressed and so terrible finished, they run towards the barbed wire and climbed up the barbed wire just to be shot, and they were shot. They wanted to end their life, you know. And that's I would say, if a man doesn't have any faith in God, you know, he could do something like that. But I had such a strong faith in the Lord, and I promised I would trust Him forever, and I did. And that's how God saw fit to keep me alive until now.